He hadn't taken a single bite of food in days, but it wasn't hunger he was afraid of. It was the pressure of a life he never asked for. While his family tried to force him to get better, it took a charismatic stranger with a gentle voice to finally create a world where he felt safe enough to try. My name is Caleb Monroe, and I keep a voice memo app on my phone. Not for music, not for reminders, for the moments when the charm is off and nobody's watching, and I need somewhere to put the real thing. I've been doing it since I was 17. Little recordings, 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Just me talking to my phone in the dark, like a man confessing to a very patient priest who never talks back. Most of them are nothing. Had a hard day, miss home, laughed so hard tonight I couldn't breathe. The ordinary interior weather of a person who spends most of his public life making sure everyone around him is comfortable. But there's one from November, about 3 weeks after last card's acquisition drama settled, that I've listened back to more than once. It goes like this. I don't actually know how to help someone who doesn't want to be helped. I've never met someone I couldn't read, not fully, not in under a minute, until now, until him. And the thing is, I don't think he needs to be helped. I think he needs to be seen, and I think those are completely different things. And I think I'm only just now understanding the difference between them. End of memo. That's it. That's the whole thing. His name is Declan Ashford. He walked into last card on a Tuesday in November like a man who had been everywhere and was tired of all of it. And I, Caleb Monroe, 25 years old, professional reader of people, man who has never in his life met a stranger, took one look at him and felt something in my chest go very, very quiet. Not because he was a mystery. I don't fall for mysteries. I solve them. Because for the first time in my life, I looked at someone and thought, this person needs something I don't know how to sell. And then, about 30 seconds later, oh no. This is that story. But first, let me tell you who I am. Because Jordan told you who he was loudly, and Eli told you who he was quietly, and nobody has yet told you about me, and I've been waiting for this. I grew up in Rockford, Illinois, in a house where the energy changed depending on who was home and which version of the day they were having. My mother was warm when she was there and gone when she wasn't, and my father was complicated. The way certain people are complicated when life didn't give them the things they needed, and they took that out on whoever was nearest. I learned early that the safest place to be was useful, needed. The person who could read the room and adjust and make whatever was happening feel slightly more manageable. I got good at it. Very good. I got so good at it that by the time I was 18, I couldn't tell the difference between reading a room and performing for a room and being a room. I was just whatever the situation needed, all the time, automatically. Eli is the quiet one who holds everything together. Jordan is the loud one who makes everything feel like home. I am the charming one who makes sure nobody leaves. That's the job description. I've been doing it so long, it's not even a decision anymore. It's just how I move through the world. The problem, and I know this, I've known this for years, it's not a revelation, I just haven't done anything about it, is that performing so well for everyone means nobody ever performs for you. Nobody asks, because you've already made it clear through every interaction that you're fine. You're always fine. You're Caleb Monroe. Fine is your default setting. I am not always fine, but that's okay. This story has a happy ending. I know because I'm the one telling it. Declan Ashford came into last card for the first time on a Tuesday in November at 9:15 in the morning. I knew who he was by then, hard not to. After everything with Noah and the acquisition, the Ashford family had become something of a recurring theme in our daily lives. But I hadn't met him personally. Noah, I'd seen plenty. Liam had basically become a fixture by that point, arriving before 7:30 every morning with Jordan's unofficial reserved counterstool and the growing vocabulary of pastry criticism that Jordan pretended to be annoyed by and was secretly delighted by. Declan I had only ever seen at a distance, once through the front window walking past, once in a photo Liam had on his phone. In person, he was striking. He had the Ashford quality they all had, that particular composed handsomeness that came from good bone structure and years of knowing people were always looking. But there was something lighter about him than his brothers, more surface, more movement. He walked in like a man who had spent his whole career walking into rooms and knowing how to fill them. And he was doing it now, even here, even in our small, narrow diner at 9:15 on a Tuesday. He sat at the counter. He looked at the menu board for a moment. "Black coffee," he said. "Please." His voice was warm, practiced, the voice of someone who had said please in that exact tone 1,000 times and knew it worked. I made his coffee. I brought it over. And then, and I don't know why I did this, I cannot fully explain it except that something in the way he had looked at the menu board and then away from it very quickly spoke a language I understood without translation. I slid a small plate beside it. One piece of toast, brown butter, from the batch Jordan had made that morning, a small spoonful of jam on the side. Nothing dramatic, nothing fancy, just something warm. He looked at it. "I didn't order that," he said. "It's on the house," I said, and then I walked away. I did not watch him to see what he did with it. I went back to the other end of the counter and I helped the next person and I chatted and I laughed and I did my job. But I noticed 45 minutes later when he stood up to leave that the toast was still there untouched and that he had stayed for 45 minutes over 1 cup of black coffee, which for someone who had somewhere to be, and Declan Ashford always had somewhere to be, his calendar was the stuff of legend according to Liam, was a long time. He left a good tip. He didn't say anything else. I cleared his cup. I looked at the untouched plate. I didn't feel bad about it. I felt interested. In the specific way I feel interested when something isn't adding up yet, and I know if I just wait patiently, it will. "He coming back?" Jordan asked from behind the pastry case, with the studied casualness of a man who was absolutely not going to admit he'd been watching. "Yeah," I said. "How do you know?" I thought about the 45 minutes, about the black coffee, about the way he had looked at the menu board and then away. "Because he stayed," I said. "He came back Thursday, same time, same stool. He went right to it without looking around, which meant he thought about where he sat the first time, which meant he thought about coming back enough to remember details. Same order, black coffee. I brought it over, same small plate beside it, this time a different jam, something Eli had found at the market, fig and cardamom, still just toast, still just on the house. He looked at me when I put it down. "You gonna keep doing that?" he said. "Probably," I said. "Even though you don't have to do anything with it," I said. "It's just there." He looked at me for a second, something in his expression that was calculating isn't the right word, measuring. The look of someone who was very good at figuring out what people were doing and why. "What are you getting out of this?" he asked. And I said, "Honestly, the company." He blinked. "Slow morning. You're interesting to talk to." "You don't know that yet. I've said maybe 12 words to you." 8, I said, plus please both times, which I'm counting separately because manners matter, but I stand by interesting. His mouth did something that almost became a smile. "You're strange." "I've been told." He drank his coffee. We talked, nothing heavy, nothing meaningful by the measure of people who think meaning requires weight. I told him about Rockford. He told me about a PR event he did the previous week in a tone of voice that was cheerful on the surface and exhausted underneath, the specific exhaustion of someone who is very good at their job and has started to find that being good at it costs more than it used to. He didn't touch the toast, but when he left, he said, "The fig jam is good." He had smelled it, or looked at it closely enough to read the label on the small jar I'd left beside it. He knew it was good. He just hadn't eaten it. "Jordan makes it," I said. "He'd be pleased to know you said so." "Don't tell him I didn't eat it." "Already forgotten," I said. He looked at me, the measuring look again. Then he nodded, once, and left. I put the untouched plate away. I did not make a face about it, not to Jordan, who was watching from the kitchen doorway, not to Eli, who was doing his gentle, continuous noticing from behind the machine. I just cleared it and moved on. He'll come back, I thought. Just wait. Here's the thing about Declan that I understood within the first 3 visits and that took everyone else in his life considerably longer. He wasn't difficult. He wasn't closed off. He was careful. There is a significant difference, and it matters. Difficult people push back. Closed-off people build walls. Careful people build something more sophisticated than walls. They build a very convincing version of openness. They laugh easily. They're warm in conversation. They're good at making you feel like you're getting the real thing. And you are, partly. The warmth is real. The humor is real. The interest in you is genuine. They just make sure that while you're getting all of that, the door in the back stays shut. I recognized it because I do it too. Not identically, we had different methods built from different histories. His came from years of being the publicly visible face of a family empire, which means years of understanding that everything you show is content that can be used against you. Mine came from a childhood that taught me the safest thing was to be what the room needed. 2 performers recognizing each other. The difference was I clocked it immediately and he took a little longer. The morning he figured it out was the morning everything actually started. It was his 5th visit. We'd been talking for 20 minutes. Good conversation, real conversation, the kind where you lose track of time and then look up and realize your coffee's cold. He had been telling me about something that had happened at work, something that had genuinely bothered him, and he was telling it in that way people tell things when they're processing rather than just reporting, which meant he trusted me enough to think out loud in front of me. And then he stopped, mid-sentence, and looked at me. "You do this professionally, don't you?" he said. It wasn't quite a question. I went still for just a second, half a beat. Probably nobody else would have caught it. He caught it. "Make people feel like they matter," he said. "It's what you do. I've been watching you with every person who comes in here, and you do the same thing. You find the specific frequency of each person, and you just transmit at them. It works. I've watched it work on 30 different people in the last 2 weeks." He held my gaze. "You're doing it with me." I looked at him. And then I said the truest thing I'd said to anyone in a long time. I make people feel what they actually feel. That's different from making them feel something. I'm not manufacturing anything. I'm just removing interference, helping the signal come through cleaner. I paused. The difference is, I'm not giving anyone something that isn't already there. Silence. Declan Ashford, head of PR, man who had been handling messaging professionally for 7 years, sat across a diner counter from me and could not find a response. First time for everything. Then he said, quietly, "That's the most honest thing anyone in a professional context has ever said to me." "We're not in a professional context," I said. "You're a guy drinking coffee at my counter." "Your counter," he repeated, like he was tasting the word. "Our counter," I corrected. "But I work here, so functionally." He smiled. The real one. I'd been waiting for it, cataloging the not-quite smiles. And here it was. It was warmer than I expected, and slightly crooked, and it went all the way up to his eyes and completely rearranged his face. I felt it somewhere in the vicinity of my entire chest. "Oh," I thought, "there you are." I love him. I should just say that now. I know I said they express it early in this one, and I've been warming up to it for several paragraphs, and now I'm going to just say it. I loved Declan Ashford by the end of the 2nd week. Not in the slow burn I didn't realize until much later way. Not in the Jordan West I was in trouble from week 3 but refused to name it way. I knew. I knew specifically and clearly and without ambiguity by the 9th morning, which was a Thursday, when he came in and sat down and said, "Good morning, Caleb." Just that. Just my name. Just casually. The way you say someone's name when it has become a comfortable thing to say. And something in me went, "Oh, that's it. That's the one." I didn't tell him immediately. I'm charming, not reckless. But I knew. And here's the remarkable thing. The thing I would spend a long time thinking about, I think. He knew too.
I think Declan Ashford, who reads performance for a living, looked at me somewhere around the 9th or 10th morning and understood that what I was doing at that counter had moved well past professional warmth into something I didn't have a clean category for and was trying not to show. And instead of pulling back, which would have been his pattern, the careful person's move, he leaned in, slightly, incrementally, in the way careful people lean in when something is worth the risk. He started staying longer, an hour, then 2 on slow mornings. He started asking questions that were less getting to know you and more, I already know you somewhat, and now I want to know more.
He started telling me things, real things, not the performance version of his day, but the underneath version, the exhaustion, the weight of always being on, the specific loneliness of being the most visible person in the room and feeling like nobody in it actually sees you. I listened. I didn't offer solutions. I didn't fix. I just held the space for it. And on the mornings when the toast sat untouched on the plate, I moved on without comment and made sure he always left with something warm in his hands at least, even if it was just the coffee. I want to be honest about this. I didn't fully understand what I was doing. I understood the shape of it. Patience, no pressure, create safety, let him lead, but I didn't have a name for what was happening with him and food. And I didn't ask because asking would have been pressure, and pressure was the one thing that clearly didn't work. What worked was just being there, consistently, without agenda, without the performance of wanting him to be okay. Just there. The toast thing changed gradually. One morning he ate half of it and didn't comment. I didn't comment. Eli, behind the machine, somehow became even less visible, which is impressive. Jordan, in the kitchen doorway, opened his mouth and then caught Eli's eye and closed it again, which is perhaps the greatest act of restraint Jordan West has ever performed in his life, and which I appreciated deeply. A week later, a whole slice. No big deal, no ceremony. He ate it and drank his coffee and told me about a ridiculous brand meeting he'd survived, and I laughed at the right parts and offered commentary at others, and we were just 2 people at a counter. Their eyes met, is what I'll tell you, when he finished, his eyes and mine, across the counter. One brief moment of, I see this, you see me seeing it, neither of us is going to make it weird. And then we moved on. Here is where I tell you about the hard part. Because this is a love story, and love stories have hard parts, and mine is no exception, except mine has the specific flavor of the thing I was most afraid of turned out to have nothing to do with him. The hard part was me. I mentioned at the beginning, the voice memo, the thing about not knowing how to help someone who doesn't want to be helped, learning the difference between helping and seeing. What I didn't mention in that memo, what I haven't mentioned yet in this story, is the other thing that was happening at the same time. While I was learning to see Declan, he was learning to see me, and he was good at it, because of course he was. He's the head of PR for a billion-dollar company. He reads people. He reads people the way I read people, from a completely different methodology that arrives at the same destination. And when he turned that capacity fully in my direction, I was completely unprepared. It happened on a morning about 4 weeks in. We were talking, and it was easy and good, and I was doing my thing, warm, present, engaged, making him feel like the most interesting person in the room, and he stopped mid-conversation and said, "When was the last time you told someone you weren't okay?" The diner continued around us, cups in conversation and the espresso machine doing its thing. I smiled. I'm always okay. Caleb, genuinely. Caleb. Quieter, direct, not aggressive. He'd never been aggressive with me, not once, just clear. You do this thing. You give everyone in this room exactly what they need, and then you stand behind the counter and run on whatever's left over. And I don't think there's much left over. He held my gaze. I've been watching you for a month. I see you, the whole picture, not just the front. I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again, and here is what came out, which surprised me as much as it surprised him. I don't actually know how to answer that. Not a deflection, not a charming pivot, just the truth, in 5 words, with no dressing. Declan nodded slowly, like he'd been waiting for that exact answer. Okay, that's okay. It's not a very good answer. It's a real one. He picked up his coffee.
I'll take real over good every time. I looked at him across the counter, this careful, warm, complicated man who had walked into last card looking effortlessly fine and turned out to be the first person in longer than I could remember who had asked about me with the same quality of attention I gave everyone else. I grew up in a house where being okay wasn't an option. Being okay was the job. Being the easy one was the job. And I've been doing it so long I can't always tell when I'm actually okay and when I'm just performing it. Silence. I know, Declan said. And then, unexpected, completely unrehearsed. Me too. Different version. Same underneath. We looked at each other. Two performers at a diner counter at 8 in the morning. I think I love you, I said. It came out before I planned it. Not smooth, not calibrated, just out there, in the air between us like something I'd dropped. Declan stared at me. I know that's fast. I don't usually say things before I'm ready to say them, and I don't know what happened just then, but Caleb. His voice was very soft. Yeah. I think I love you too. I stared. I've been thinking it for about 2 weeks, he said. I was waiting for a better moment. Is this not a better moment? You're wearing an apron with a coffee stain on the left side. I have flour in my hair from sitting too close to Jordan's section yesterday. It is 7:58 a.m. He paused. It's actually the perfect moment. I laughed. Out loud, in last card, at 7:58 in the morning. The kind of laugh that starts in your stomach and surprises you on the way out. And Declan smiled, the real one. The crooked, warm one that rearranged his face and reached across the counter and put his hand over mine. Just that. Just his hand over mine.
From the back, Jordan's voice carried through the kitchen hatch. Eli, I need you to come look at this right now. And Eli's voice, serene as weather. I know. Here's what nobody tells you about getting the thing you didn't think you deserved. It's terrifying. Not in a bad way, in the way that good things are terrifying, when you spent most of your life quietly believing that good things were for other people, and you were the person who made sure other people got them. I'd been a facilitator for so long that being the recipient felt not wrong exactly, just unfamiliar, like wearing a coat that fits perfectly, but that you've never owned before. Declan was patient with this, patient in a way that I recognized because I'd been practicing it with him for weeks, and now he was handing it back to me, and it was the most extraordinary thing, to be on the receiving end of your own lesson. He didn't push, he didn't perform, he just showed up. Every morning, 7:30 or earlier now, consistent as gravity. He sat at the counter, and we talked, and he ate the toast always now. Some mornings more, occasionally something from Jordan's case that he chose himself, which made Jordan cry quietly in the walk-in for reasons that were completely non-sad and which he categorically denied for 2 full weeks. He texted me throughout the day, not constantly. He was not a constant texter, it wasn't his style, but thoughtfully. A thing he saw that reminded him of something I had said, a question that had occurred to him mid-meeting. Once, at 11 p.m., just, "You okay?" And I wrote back, "Not entirely. Long day." And he wrote, "I know. You don't have to be." I saved that one. It's in a folder on my phone now. I look at it sometimes. The event was on a Friday in December, a high-profile industry thing, a big public appearance, the kind Declan did constantly, the kind he was brilliant at. He had been tired going into it. I'd seen it that morning. The particular quality of tired that was different from his usual. Something tighter, more effortful. I'd said so, quietly, and he'd said he was fine, and I had recognized my own word in his mouth and said nothing, because sometimes you have to let people find out for themselves. I got a text from an unknown number at 9 p.m. It was a link to a gossip blog. I didn't click it. I didn't need to. The preview text said enough. I put my phone down on the last card counter, and I stood there for a moment. Jordan was in the back. Eli had gone home. Just me and the night sounds of the diner winding down. I opened my texts. I typed, "Last card opens at 6. I make coffee first thing. No cameras on Randolph that early."
I put the phone down. I went and finished the closing checklist. I went home. I slept, mostly. He showed up at 6:02. He was in a dark jacket and plain clothes, and he looked like a man who had spent the night putting himself back together and had gotten about 70% of the way there, and then ran out of energy. He sat at the counter. He didn't say anything.
I made coffee. I didn't say anything either. Just moved around the kitchen in the early dark, the familiar sounds, the specific peace of a place before the day gets loud. I put his cup down. I made myself one, and I stood across from him, and we drank in silence, and the city was barely starting outside, and Last Card was warm and quiet and entirely completely free of cameras and performance requirements. After a while, he said, "I'm not fine." "I know," I said. "I've been not fine for a while. I know that too." He looked at me. "You never said anything." "You weren't ready to say it yet. That's different from me not seeing it." I held his gaze. "I see you, all of it, the parts you show and the parts you don't. I've seen it since the first Tuesday." I paused. "It didn't change anything. It won't change anything." He was quiet. "My brothers are calling," he said. "My family is... There are people with opinions. There are always people with opinions. About me, about this, about whether someone like you is..." He stopped. "Whether I'm after something," I said. He closed his eyes briefly. "I don't think that. I want to be clear that I don't think that. I know you don't. My mother might. Declan." I waited until he looked at me. "Let them have their opinions. You know what's true. I know what's true. That's the only math that matters here." He looked at me for a long moment. Then, without ceremony, I slid a small bowl across the counter. Oatmeal, warm, plain, made the way I had learned he could handle things. Simple, no pressure, nothing elaborate, just something warm on a hard morning. He looked at it for a long time. Then he picked up the spoon. He didn't make a big deal of it, neither did I. We just sat there in the quiet of the early morning, the city coming alive outside, and it was ordinary, and it was enormous, and it was both of those things at exactly the same time. From the back, Jordan had arrived at 5:15. Jordan is always there at 5:15. Jordan will be there at 5:15 at the end of the world. Came a sound that was very definitely not crying, and was absolutely crying, and was immediately covered by an extremely aggressive and unconvincing episode of coughing. Declan glanced toward the kitchen. "Is he..." "He's fine," I said. "He does that." The family house was Noah's idea, which surprised exactly nobody, because Noah Ashford, having apparently discovered feelings somewhere around 7 weeks after Last Card opened, had become the kind of man who acted on them with the same decisive energy he brought to boardroom decisions. He called a family dinner at the house in Lincoln Park where the 3 brothers had grown up, their parents, the 3 of them, and apparently, as communicated via text to Eli and then relayed to me and Jordan with increasing levels of additional commentary at each relay, their guests. "Guests," Jordan said, reading Eli's text. "He called us guests?" "It's a formal situation," I said. "It's a family dinner, not a board meeting, Caleb. With Noah Ashford's family, same thing." Eli, beside me, said, "We should bring things." "Obviously," Jordan said, already mentally constructing a baked goods situation of considerable scale. "Don't bring too much," I said. "It'll look like we're trying to impress them." Jordan looked at me. "I am trying to impress them. I'm bringing the brown butter croissants, the fig and cardamom jam, 2 dozen of the almond financiers, and a kouign-amann that I will be presenting as casual." "That's not casual." "None of this is casual, Caleb. My boyfriend's mother is going to decide if I'm acceptable, and I'm going to walk in there with the most aggressively excellent pastry situation she has ever encountered, and she is going to love me." I looked at Eli. Eli said, "I'm bringing the good beans." The house in Lincoln Park was... Look, it was a house. It was technically a house. It had walls and a roof and a front door and a kitchen.
It also had original art and ceilings that required the kind of confidence that comes from generational wealth, and a garden in November that was still more beautiful than most things I'd seen in full summer. We arrived together, the three of us, at 6 on the dot. Jordan with his considerable pastry situation, Eli with a bag of very precious coffee beans, me with Declan's hand in mine and a feeling in my chest that was the specific combination of completely terrified and absolutely certain, which is, I've come to understand, just what love feels like when it's real. Noah opened the door. He looked at Eli and did the thing I'd gotten used to watching, the loosening, the way his whole face changed from CEO to person. He said, "You're on time." Early, actually. 6 o'clock is on time. We had been standing on the path for 2 minutes. Noah looked like he wanted to argue and had decided not to. "Come in." Liam appeared behind him, immediately took one look at Jordan's pastry situation and grabbed the kuyunaman with both hands like a man reunited with something precious. Jordan allowed this with enormous dignity. Declan's hand tightened in mine as we stepped inside. "It's okay," I said quietly. "I know," he said. "I'm not scared." "I know you're not," I said. "Neither am I." We were both a little scared, but that was okay. Some things are worth being a little scared for. His mother's name was Catherine Ashford, and she was not what I expected. I had prepared myself quietly for someone formal and evaluating, the kind of woman who looked at people from Rockford, Illinois, with the measuring eye of someone calculating whether they belonged. She was not that. She was warm, immediately, genuinely warm, not performed warmth. I know the difference. She was a woman who raised 3 sons and loved them specifically and thoroughly, and who, from the moment we walked in, was looking at the 3 of us with an expression that I can only describe as, "Oh, so these are the ones." She hugged Eli first, which made Eli go very still in the particular way of someone receiving unexpected affection. She took Jordan's pastry situation from him with both hands and made a sound of genuine delight. She looked at me, really looked, the same way Declan looked at people, the same quality of attention, and said, "You're the one who made him eat breakfast." I opened my mouth, closed it. "I just kept a plate there," I said. "That's everything," she said, and hugged me. I'm not going to lie to you. I held on for a second longer than was strictly necessary, because Catherine Ashford smelled like good cooking and something floral and warmth, the specific warmth of a mother's hug, which is a thing I had not had in a considerable amount of time, and my chest did something complicated about it. Declan beside me saw my face when she let go.
He didn't say anything. He just put his hand on my back, lightly, there. Dinner was loud and chaotic and wonderful. Noah made an attempt at authority that lasted approximately 7 minutes before Eli quietly redirected a conversation, and Noah followed the redirect with the helpless ease of a man who had completely lost control of himself sometime around a Tuesday morning in October and was not even a little unhappy about it. Liam and Jordan argued about whether Queen Aman was technically a pastry or a cake for 25 minutes with the energy of people who had been having versions of this argument for a while and enjoyed it thoroughly. Jordan's position was passionate and correct. Liam's position was wrong, but delivered with such conviction that at least 3 family members were nodding along. Mr. Ashford, Richard, was quieter than his wife. He watched. He had the look of a man who had been the authority in the room for many years and was only recently discovering what it felt like when that authority became something softer. He watched his 3 sons over dinner, and he watched the 3 of us, and toward the end of the meal he said to me, "Declan seems lighter." "He's been working on it," I said. "Has he?" "Not a question." "We both have," I said. "Turns out it's easier when someone's doing it with you." Richard Ashford was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded, just once, the nod of a man who meant it. Catherine Ashford brought out a cake toward the end of the night, homemade, chocolate, the kind of cake you make for a celebration. And when she set it down, she looked around the table at all 9 of us with an expression of such profound and barely contained joy that Liam said, "Mom, whatever you're about to say." "I'm not saying anything. I'm just looking at my boys. With their—" She paused, pressed her hands together.
I have been waiting to plan a wedding for 15 years. Mom, I'm not saying a wedding. I'm just noting that I have been waiting to plan one. Hypothetically. Her eyes were bright. Or 3. The table went very quiet. Then Declan, beside me, started laughing. Real laughing. The full version. And it was the most extraordinary sound. Easy and unguarded and completely without performance. Noah had the expression of a man running calculations. Liam was hiding his face in Jordan's shoulder. Jordan was openly delighted. Eli was smiling the small, private smile of someone who had known something for a while. "Caleb," Declan said through his laughing. "Yeah? She's going to plan 3 weddings." "I know. How do you feel about that?" I looked at him. This man, this careful, warm, complicated, finally not performing man, with his cricket real smile and his hand on my back and his morning coffee and all the plates he'd left untouched, and then slowly learned to receive. "I think," I said, "that would be the best possible problem to have." Catherine Ashford made a sound of joy so complete it could have powered the whole of West Randolph Street. Jordan said, "For the record, I want a spring wedding." Liam said, "I haven't asked you anything. You'll get there." Noah said nothing, but turned to look at Eli with an expression that Eli returned with a quiet smile, and something passed between them that didn't need words. I looked at Declan. He looked at me. "Last card opens at 6, he said. "You don't have to be there at 6. This is the part where I wrap it up. We're Caleb Monroe, 25 years old, effortlessly charming, grew up believing good things were for other people, tells you what he knows now that he didn't know then.
Here's what I know. The performance doesn't go away. I still read rooms. I still adjust to frequencies. I still make people feel seen. Every person who walks into last card every single morning. That's not an armor anymore. It's just who I am. There's a difference. The difference is that I go home at night and there's someone there who asks, "You okay? Actually?" And I say, "Mostly. Ask me again in an hour." And he asks again in an hour. And that's it. That's the whole thing. That's what I didn't know I needed. Jordan was right about the spring wedding, by the way. Catherine Ashford has a vision board. I have seen the vision board. It has 3 sections. Section 1 is marked Noah and Eli and has a color palette of warm creams and deep greens because Catherine Ashford has been paying attention. Section 2 is marked Liam and Jordan and is the most aggressively floral thing I have ever seen in my life, which is either extremely Jordan or extremely Liam, or most likely both. Section 3 is marked Declan and Caleb and has a color palette of deep amber and soft gold with a handwritten note in a corner that says, "Keep it warm, keep it honest." I cried a little when I saw that. Declan didn't say anything. He just put his hand over mine. Same as the first time. Same counter, same gesture, same man. Some things, when they're right, stay right. Last card is still there. The sign is still crooked. 3 men from Rockford, Illinois, who spent their last card on a breakfast diner are still making the best coffee and pastry on West Randolph Street, which is objectively poetic justice of the highest order. And next door, in the glass tower that once had plans to build a lobby where we stand, 3 brothers who run the most powerful company in the Midwest come in before 7:30 most mornings. Second stool, counter seat, spot by the window. They come for the coffee. They come for the pastry. They come because last card is the one place in Chicago where nobody needs them to be anything other than the person they actually are. We know. That's why we're still here. The sign on the door still says closed from the previous tenant. We still haven't taken it down. We still think it's funny. Some jokes get better with time. This one's for Catherine Ashford, who is planning 3 weddings and has never been happier in her life. And for the 6 of us who used our last dollar and got everything. The end of part 3. The end of the last card. 3 diners, 3 counters, 3 mornings that changed everything. Black, no sugar.
butter and brown sugar, something warm, no name yet. Thank you for listening.